Hi guys, we're gonna try this again with the Bloggy because I still haven't purchased the Camtasia because it's $75. Like, we could all pitch in and do that, I think, but I'm just $75. Maybe I'll ask for it for Christmas. Anyway, it's a rainy day, it's a rainy day. It's raining outside and I can't go out and play. Why do we need the rain? Anyway, it's a little retro Sesame Street for you this morning. Okay, so a little folk and popular culture for you this morning. Let's see if I can back up a little bit. I'm going to scoot up and back. Here, I'll back up, zoom in, zoom, there we go. Now I can lean back in my chair. So geographers study how culture influences behavior. There's a difference between a habit and a custom. A habit is a repetitive act performed by an individual. And you know, people used to say that if you did a habit, 21 times, it would, or if you did something 21 times, it would become a habit. But now I'm hearing it's actually a lot more times than that, like more like 60. So those of you who are thinking, hey, if I just, go to the gym 21 times, I'll be good. It's more like 60. So you're going to have to really get on that. Now, a custom is a repetitive act performed by a group. So a habit is something done by an individual, and a custom is something done by a group. So a habit would be like one person wearing jeans with colorful patches, and a custom is like all college students from the American South wearing jeans with colorful patches. Those are kind of weird examples. Okay, I think I might need a clicker for this leaning. So some characteristics of folk and popular cultures. So the origin of folk culture, these have anonymous hearths. And it's possible to have multiple hearths, each originating independently. So anonymous sources means that nobody knows the dates. Nobody really knows who the originators are. It's not like there's somebody, Bob back there that was like, well, Bob started this and he started on February 3rd. Nobody knows. So it's anonymous and the date is not certain either. Whereas popular culture is a product of a developed country, typically North America or Europe, and the origin is often traceable to a specific person or corporation in a particular place. So generally you can name where something starts, you can name when it started. Like you could look something up and say, where did this come from? When did it start? Like for example, the other night, somebody posted something on Facebook about this year is going to be the 666th Halloween. And I was like, that doesn't even sound vaguely legitimate. So I was looking up, when did Halloween start? And it was like, All Hallows Eve started in the 8th century with Pope, I think it was Gregory the Third. And I was like, 8th century, that is not even close to 666 years ago, would have been in the 1300s. So I was like, no. Okay, so popular culture, you can generally figure out where it came from and sometimes even the person, whereas folk culture is a lot more anonymous, who the originators were and where. Okay, folk culture is diffused on a much smaller scale. We talked about this the other day. And the transmission is slower from one location to another, primarily through relocation, meaning as people migrate from one place to another, they take those bits of their culture with them. Whereas popular culture tends to be transmitted by hierarchical diffusion, which means it diffuses rapidly and extensively from hearths or nodes. So it goes from like big city to big city with the help of modern communications. And it's fascinating how this works. So like, if you guys go to different places in the world, or if you even go to different cities, pay attention to what's on the radio or what's on TV while you're there. So I've noticed, like I have a friend who lives in DC, and if I listen to what's on the radio there while I'm in DC, and then a few months later it will be on the radio like in Lexington. So it's really interesting to see how things diffuse from cities that are a bit bigger to, like DC, to cities that are a little bit smaller, like Lexington. It's neat to see that hierarchical diffusion happening. Okay, so folk culture is a combination of local physical and cultural factors which influence distinctive distributions. For example, we have isolation from other cultures because of physical barriers. So the distance and the mountain ranges cause folk cultures to sometimes be kind of isolated from cultures around them. Additionally, we have religious factors that cause folk cultures to have distinctive characteristics and culture from those cultures around them. And then popular culture, is widely distributed across countries with little regard to physical factors. So the principal obstacle to access is a lack of income to purchase the material. So for example, like we talked about jeans the other day, and jeans have come up again here. Jeans are going to be popular almost all over the entire world, except where people can't purchase them. And you might have different like types of jeans. So you're going to have different jeans manufacturers and jeans that have different styles or different, think about all the different jeans you see, like mom jeans and jeans that have snazzy stuff on the booty and jeans that have rips that are like fashion rips. I don't know what those kind of rips are called. And whereas, you've seen jeans that are like not the right color of fadedness. I'll admit, I think I'm in that camp sometimes. And jeans that are like not cool. You know what I'm trying to say. And so that all has to do with access financially to that pop culture. Okay, so let me scooch over a little bit here. So this map shows us World Cup qualifiers, countries that qualify for the final round. So the dark blue countries are those that have qualified 15 years and above for the final round of the World Cup. And then the countries that are a lighter blue are those that have qualified 10 to 14 years. And then the countries that are even lighter blue are those that have qualified 1 to 9 years. And then those that are almost a gray have never qualified. And those that are white are host countries, which is kind of hard to see. Oh, wait. Those that are outlined in a pink are host countries. Sorry if I was moving that too much. So you can see the really, really dark countries like in South America and then in Central Europe are going to have qualified for a really long time, whereas Mexico and then Western Europe have qualified 10 to 14 years. And then as we get into the 1 to 9 year mark, we have the United States, Canada, Russia, China, Australia, into Africa, the rest of South America, and then the rest, lots of Africa and Asia, have never qualified before. Oops, sorry, I'm still moving that too much. I need a tripod, that's what I need to get. Okay, so let's talk about popular music, or folk and popular music. So folk music originates anonymously and is transmitted orally. So it's going to be a lot like, if you think about oral history, that a lot of times we don't know where it comes from, and it's transmitted through word of mouth. And modifications to songs are made over successive generations to represent changes in conditions. So if we think about like a lot of African songs, a lot of Native American songs, indigenous songs, like in the indigenous to Central and South America, those songs are going to be transmitted orally, and those songs are going to change a little bit over time based on what's going on in those places. And the content of those songs is going to center on daily life and things that are familiar to those people. Even like if you think about work songs, like Irish work songs, coal mining songs, a lot of that is going to have to do with these events as well. So we have like life cycle events, birth, death, marriage, and then environmental features like agriculture and climate. And migration of those people is going to diffuse that music. And what's really cool is that music is going to influence music that becomes part of popular culture. Okay, so popular music, however, is music written by specific individuals with the intent of being sold or performed in front of a paying audience. And this often displays a high degree of technical skill, whereas folk music, these people may very well be very talented, but they don't have what one would call technical skill in the sense of like going to school perhaps, or being trained by someone, like training under like a master. They might train under someone who's equally talented, but it wouldn't be in the same way that you would be trained like in classical guitar or at a music school or something like that. So pop musicians, and I don't mean pop like, hey, Backstreet's back, all right, but I mean popular culture musicians have a strong connection with other similar musicians that may span the globe. So, I'm sorry, I'm moving too much. So, like rock musicians in one country are going to have connections to rock musicians in another country, etc., etc., and they're going to have limited connections with local musicians of different genre. So, whereas they might know, like, other people on the local scene, they're not going to have the same connection with them that they're going to have to other people in their same genre in other parts of the world. Sports. So sports originate as isolated folk customs and diffuse like other folk customs via relocation and diffusion. So we'll talk about football in a minute, but let's talk about the Maya in Chichen Itza and their ball game. Have you guys learned about this? It's so cool. So we know that they have these ball fields. We know that there are these big stone circles, like rings up in the air or hoops up in the air, and they're not this way like a basketball goal. They're this way. So something was going. Oh, have you guys seen the Road to El Dorado? Yes. Okay, that's great. That will show you. So the ball goes through the hoop this way, and they go down the field, and they go up the field. And it's thought that perhaps the players were like, oh, do they show this game in Apocalypto? I can't remember. That movie is so great. I get to reference it so often. So it's thought that perhaps this game was played by like the best soldiers or athletes, from each of the tribes, and then the losing tribe was sacrificed at the top of a ziggurat or a stepped pyramid, which is pretty intense, but so were the Maya, right? So anyway, so we don't know exactly how this game was played. We can only guess, just like you guys did with your non-flower pot cultures the other day. Like, we have all these pieces that are missing, and we can only guess, like, what type of ball this was played with, what happened to the people who won or lost. Like, we're totally guessing what this game was for, what the purpose was, what happened to the winners and the losers, what all the elements of the game. Was it really a game? Like, it's just totally fascinating. If you haven't been to Chichen Itza and you have the opportunity, I totally suggest you go, although be prepared. You won't be able to donate blood afterward because there is malaria. Well, there are mosquitoes there, but just wait a year, you'll be good. Okay. Okay, sports. So football, i.e. soccer, comes from England. In the 11th century, transformation from a folk to popular sport begins in the 1800s when clubs begin to organize in the UK, and then professional players are hired. So we have this transformation when people become professional and when it is really standardized. and then organized professional leagues are established. And the UK marks this formal transition from a folk sport to a popular sport. And I think you could see this similar transition happening in almost every sport. Like think about lacrosse, which is a Native American sport, and it makes that transition from indigenous to becoming a popular sport. I'm curious where it initially became a popular sport. If it's a typically American sport, I'm really interested in that. If any of you guys play lacrosse, that would be fun to find out. And then I'm sure baseball has a similar background, being something people are going to play on a smaller level, and then it's going to become professional. Basketball being the same way. Yeah, so we should look into some of those and see the history of each of some different sports. That would be really fun. I'm sure we have a project coming up where we'll get to do that. Oh, look at these kiddos. Okay, so they are playing, looks like cricket. So cricket's going to be the same way. And okay, so folk and popular material culture includes clothing, food, and shelter. And it's going to, just like everything in folk culture, it's going to diffuse slowly through the process of migration. So that's relocation. And then popular culture is going to diffuse more rapidly, and it's going to be hierarchical. And that access is going to be determined, again, by having sufficient income to embrace it. So folk culture is going to spread by people moving. So that clothing, different types of food move with people. In WorldSave right now, we just finished talking about the Columbian Exchange. That's exactly how it works, that relocation. Different types of shelter move as people move. And then popular culture diffuses as people kind of find out about new popular things, and if they have the finances to access those things. Okay, folk and popular clothing. Okay, so folk clothing preferences, styles of clothing worn in response to distinctive agricultural practices. So, for example, folk custom in the Netherlands to wear wooden shoes because it's practical in wet climates. And then, whereas in other places we have fur-lined boots that protect against cold and Arctic climates. So that's just a matter of practicality based on where people live. And then popular clothing preferences are going to generally reflect occupation and income rather than that particular environment. So, for example, business suits aren't always practical. I mean, think about, I don't know about you guys, if your dads wear suits to work. My dad always looks miserable in a business suit because, like, my dad's a financial consultant, which I think is a fairly stressful job. And so he, like, has this tie on, and it's very tight, and it's constrictive, and he's wearing, you know, a suit coat. And I just think, like, it just seems like a very stressful job managing people's money to have on such a constrictive outfit. But in our culture, that's what's totally appropriate, you know, that you wear this outfit that conveys your, like, level of essentially education, and that you're, like, that you are respectable and appropriate, and that you are trustworthy. And then this idea of designer clothes worn by the affluent, clearly he has to dress an appropriate way to show that, like, people can trust him with their money, and thus he has to show that, like, he has enough money. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. Whereas, like, wouldn't it be more sensible if it were snowing, he just came in his fuzzy boots, or like if it were raining, he came in his wooden shoes, although that would be funny too. So it's really interesting how folk and popular culture, like, reflect different things in our societies and different things that are important to us. Look at this guy. Like, although, I don't know, it looks to me like a lot of rain can get in there. My grandparents went to the Netherlands, and they had a pair of wooden shoes like this, like, on their fireplace. And all the grandchildren, we used to clomp around in these wooden shoes. They are less comfortable than you would think. Maybe when they fit you appropriately, they're better, though. Okay, let me see where we are. Clothing. Okay. So clothing, improved communication, central to rapid diffusion. Oh, okay. So time for original designs for women's dresses to be designed. Oh, so women's dresses originally were designed in places like fashion capitals, Paris, London, Milan, and reproductions were available in stores. But that time period has diminished now. So it used to take years for reproductions of what was very fashionable to go from big cities to local stores. And now that's a lot quicker. So now you can get a reproduction of like what somebody wears to the Oscars in a lot faster time. Jeans are an important symbol of the diffusion of Western popular culture. I remember I went on a UN trip when I was a junior in high school, and we met with a delegate from Russia, and I just remember him talking about jeans and how much they loved jeans. It was very strange because he spent a significant amount of time just telling us how much they loved the United States and Russia, which I thought was very suspect, but he told us how much they loved jeans over and over. So there's that idea of Western diffusion of culture. Now here's the diversity of jeans. So in Japan, they're going to be customized. Now, of course, this could be totally different because a year has passed, and you know how fast fashion trends change. So in Japan, they're customized with patches and cutouts. In Korea, they're frayed, ripped, or shredded. And in Italy, the booty of the jeans are bleached. At least in 2014, that was what was going on. Okay, and people adapt their food preferences to conditions in the environment. So in Asia, rice is grown because we have milder, moister conditions, or moister regions. And wheat is grown in the drier regions. Whereas in Europe, Italy has a preference for quick frying foods because of fuel shortages. And in Northern Europe, there's an abundant food supply, which encourages slow stewing and roasting of foods. So it's really fascinating how people eat different things based on what materials they have available. Not just what foods they have available, but what their climate is and what fuel they have available to cook those foods. Okay, so let's look at some food taboos. So people may desire or avoid certain foods as a result of perceived beneficial or harmful natural traits. So a restriction is imposed by a social custom to eat a particular food or animals that are believed to embody negative forces is a taboo. So ancient Hebrews in the Bible were forbidden to eat animals that did not chew their cud, or that have cloven feet, and fish lacking fins or scales. So, for example, hold on, we pause.